which felt really scary and very weighty too, because there was an idol of marriage
Hmm.
that I've had all my life, just kind of hoping for, I guess, a version of second salvation is kind of what it felt like. It's like you get saved, and that's like this euphoric thing that's gonna like carry you through life. But I mean, marriage is like right there underneath
Yeah.
it. And then I just met this community of people who have shared experience and kind of landed the same way I did, which I thought was crazy. It felt like I was the only person experiencing this growing up because we really didn't talk about it in our church. And so, yeah, I've found great community and have been able to talk about this at my church here in New York City a bit. And there's lots of bigger concepts that kind of go with this that I feel like has been really useful to people who have different experiences in the church, just around vulnerability and community and accountability and things like that, that I think has been really great for Christian community. So every time I tell my story, I emphasize or tell different parts, it feels like, but that's the version you get for this episode.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the
IFB.
Yeah, IDFB. We actually grew up Presbyterian.
Yeah.
Is that PCA?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I go to a PCA church in New York.
Oh, okay. It's PCA.
Yeah.
Was Tim Keller's church was PCA, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's the same church?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, yeah, there you go. Okay, so I'm in this, I want to get some clarification.
Yeah.
As you are having this like light bulb moment, it seems like you said certain things aren't fulfilling. I think all of us who are in Christ can look into the things we chase in this world and have come to that same conclusion that it is not fulfilling. Was that the simultaneous time when you then said Jesus is the fulfillment? Is that a separate time? Is that more of a did it happen through incrementalism over time, span over time? What was that like? Or did that happen younger? I mean, you grew up in church, so.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up committing myself to Jesus and being pretty passionate about him, like leading, starting a boys' Bible study in high school that we would do on Tuesdays, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Wanting to go into ministry, all that. So, I've been following Jesus for most of my life. I think this was a point where it was like I didn't realize that part of the deal would include potentially not having a partner, like not, having the wife and kids and that sort of like life situation. And I think that was really difficult for me because it's like, I think I was looking to that for fulfillment and happiness, and still kind of struggle with feeling like I could be more fulfilled or more happy if I had a partner sort of thing. But yeah, I think it really was a decision of like, okay, Jesus, if my convictions and my understanding of the way the Bible talks about the subject of sexuality are true, then let's try this, And so, yeah, it was a point of me kind of a recommitment to Jesus and being like, yeah, I've kind of walked away. It's kind of like a prodigal moment, I guess. And I'm coming back and being like, yeah, I think this is it, which felt really scary and very weighty too, because there was an idol of marriage that I've had all my life, just kind of hoping for, I guess, a version of second salvation is kind of what it felt like. It's like you get saved, and that's like this euphoric thing that's gonna like carry you through life. But I mean, marriage is like right there underneath it. And it's like, okay, cool, I believe that. And like, I love Disney and I like Happily Ever After and I like all this other stuff. So this idea of like, oh, you're gonna die alone, like that doesn't necessarily sound like super life-giving or fun or something I would choose for myself. So yeah, it's a difficult, it was a weighty and difficult decision to make, but it's a decision of trust. And I feel like there's lots of times in the Bible where God or Jesus specifically was asking someone to give up the thing that mattered to them the most. You think of the rich young ruler who wanted to follow God, much like I did. But whenever God was like, okay, give up all your stuff and then follow me, he was like, well, maybe I don't want to follow him that much. And then, I mean, especially I think of, geez, like Abraham and Isaac, and it's like, okay, do you love me enough to kill your own son? It's like,
Right.
I don't know if it's that much. So yeah, I feel like God does test us in these ways, and it's a trend, it seems.
Oh yeah, most certainly. So for the listeners, because I want to make sure we spend a lot of time on what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
For the listeners, you are a professing believer.
Yeah.
You claim that Jesus is Lord. What does that mean, that Jesus is Lord?
It means that he basically is first place in your life. I don't know like a better way to say that, but it's like all things that are competing against him in your life, he has rulership over that. He has the ability to, what we just talked about. It's like kind of say, hey, do you love me more than this? Am I Lord over all in your life? And anything that takes that place is basically the definition of an idol.
Yeah. So, and it's for that very reason that you are like, when it comes down to these desires that I have as a same-sex attracted man, I'm not acting on them. If that means a life of celibacy and non-marriage, Christ, you're worth it. That's your declaration.
Yep.
Well, that's honorable. And I think the lie in the loneliness thing is that a Christian could ever be lonely.
Yeah.
A Christian is never lonely. Never. Now, obviously, you can obviously do what's the opposite of silver lining?
That poop. What's the opposite of silver lining?
Well, whatever the anti-silver lining is, I know that eternally, theologically, I know I'm not alone, but I'm physically still alone. But I think God even aids us and comforts us in that as well.